双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
Fisherman's Luck by Henry Van Dyke, and some other uncertain things. Now I conclude that not only in physic, but likewise in sundry more certain arts, fortune hath great share in them. M. de Montaigne. Divers events. Dedication to my Lady Greygown. Here is the basket. I bring it home to you. There are no great fish in it, but perhaps there may be one or two little ones which will be to your taste. And there are a few shining pebbles from the bed of the brook, and ferns from the cool, green woods, and wild flowers from the places that you remember. I would fain console you, if I could, for the hardship of having married an angler, a man who relapses into his mania with the return of every spring, and never sees a little river without wishing to fish in it. But after all, we have had good times together as we have followed the stream of life towards the sea, and we have passed through the dark days without losing heart, because we were comrades. So let this book tell you one thing that is certain. In all the life of your fisherman, the best piece of luck is just you.
Contents.
I. Fisherman's luck.
2.
The thrilling moment. 3.
Talkability.
4. A wild strawberry. V. Lovers and landscape. 6. A fatal success.
7.
Fishing and books.
8.
A Norwegian honeymoon.
9. Who owns the mountains?
X. A lazy, idle brook. 11. The open fire. 12. A slumber song. Fisherman's luck. Has it ever fallen in your way to notice the quality of the greetings that belong to certain occupations? There is something about these salutations in kind which is singularly taking and grateful to the ear. They are as much better than an ordinary good day or a flat how are you, as a folk song of Scotland or the Tyrol is better than the feudal love ditty of the drawing room. They have a spicy and rememberable flavor. They speak to the imagination and point the way to treasure trove. There is a touch of dignity in them.
2. For all they are so free
and easy, the dignity of independence, the native spirit of one who takes for granted that his mode of living has a right to make its own forms of speech. I admire a man who does not hesitate to salute the world in the dialect of his calling. How salty and stimulating, for example, is the sailorman's hail of "Ship ahoy!" It is like a breeze laden with briny odors and a pleasant dash of spray. The miners in some parts of Germany have a good greeting for their dusky trade. They cry to one who is going down the shaft, "Glück auf!" All the perils of an underground adventure and all the joys of seeing the sun again are compressed into a word. Even the trivial salutation which the telephone has lately created and claimed for its peculiar use, "Hello, hello," seems to me to have a kind of fitness and fascination.
It is like a
thoroughbred bulldog, ugly enough to be attractive.
There is a
lively,
concentrated,
electric air about it. It makes courtesy wait upon dispatch, and reminds us that we live in an age when it is necessary to be wide awake. I have often wished that every human employment might evolve its own appropriate greeting. Some of them would be queer, no doubt, but at least they would be an improvement on the wearisome iteration of good evening and good morning, and the monotonous inquiry,
"How
do you do?" A question so meaningless that it seldom tarries for an answer. Under the new and more natural system of etiquette,
when
you pass the time of day with a man you would know his business, and the salutations of the marketplace would be full of interest. As for my chosen pursuit of angling, which I follow with diligence, when not interrupted by less important concerns, I rejoice with every true fisherman that it has a greeting all its own and of a most honorable antiquity. There is no written record of its origin, but it is quite certain that since the days after the Flood. When Deucalion did first this art invent of angling, and his people taught the same, two honest and good-natured anglers have never met each other by the way without crying out, "What luck!" Here, indeed, is an epitome of the gentle art. Here is the spirit of it embodied in a word and paying its respects to you with its native accent. Here you see its secret charms unconsciously
disclosed.
The attraction of angling for all the ages of man,
From
the cradle to the grave, lies in its uncertainty. 'Tis an affair of luck. No amount of preparation in the matter of rods and lines and hooks, and lures and nets and creels can change its essential character. No excellence of skill in casting the delusive fly or adjusting the tempting bait upon the hook can make the result secure.
you may.
Reduce the chances, but you cannot eliminate them.
There are 1,000
points at which fortune may intervene. The state of the weather, the height of the water, the appetite of the fish,
the
presence or absence of other anglers, all these indeterminable elements enter into the reckoning of your success. There is no combination of stars in the firmament by which you can forecast the piscatorial future. When you go fishing, you just take your chances. You offer yourself as a candidate for anything that may be
going.
You try your luck. There are certain days that are favorites among anglers, who regard them as propitious for the sport. I know a man who believes that the fish always rise better on Sunday than on any other day in the
week.
He complains bitterly of this supposed fact, because his religious scruples will not allow him to take advantage of it. He confesses that he has sometimes thought seriously of joining the Seventh-day Baptists among the Pennsylvania Dutch in the Allegheny Mountains. I have found a curious tradition that Ascension Day is the luckiest in the year for fishing. On that morning the district school is apt to be thinly attended, and you must be on the stream very early if you do not wish to find wet footprints on the stones ahead of you. But in fact, all these superstitions about fortunate days are idle and presumptuous. If there were such days in the calendar, a kind and firm providence would never permit the race of man to discover
them.
It would rob life of one of its principal attractions, and make fishing altogether too easy to be interesting. Fisherman's luck is so notorious that it has passed into a proverb. But the fault with that familiar saying is that it is too short and too narrow to cover half the variations of the angler's possible experience. For if his luck should be bad, there is no portion of his anatomy, from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet, that may not be thoroughly wet. But if it should be good,
he may
receive an unearned blessing of abundance, not only in his basket, but also in his head and his heart, his memory and his fancy. He may come home from some obscure, ill-named, lovely stream, some dry brook, or southwest branch of Smith's Run with a creel full of
trout,
and a mind full of grateful recollections of flowers that seemed to bloom for his sake, and birds that sang a new, sweet, friendly message to his tired soul. He may climb down to Tommy's Rock below the cliffs at Newport, as I have done many a day with my Lady Grey gown, and, all unnoticed by the idle, weary promenaders in the path of fashion, haul in a basketful of blackfish, and, at the same time look out across the shining sapphire waters and inherit a wondrous good fortune of dreams. Have glimpses that will make him less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. But all this, you must remember, depends upon something secret and incalculable, something that we can neither command nor predict. It is an affair of gift, not of wages. Fish and the other good things, which are like sauce to the catching of them, cast no shadow before. Water is the emblem of instability. No one can tell what he shall draw out of it until he is taken in his line. Herein are found the true charm and profit of angling for all persons of a pure and childlike mind. Look at those two venerable gentlemen floating in a skiff upon the clear waters of Lake George. One of them is a successful statesman, an ex-president of the United States, a lawyer versed in all the curious eccentricities of the lawless science of the law.
The
Other is a learned doctor of medicine, able to give a name to all diseases from which men have imagined that they suffered,
and to
invent new ones for those who are tired of vulgar maladies. But all their learning is forgotten. Their cares and controversies are laid aside in innocuous desuetude. The summer school of sociology is assembled. The medical congress is in session. But they care not know, not so much as the value of a single live
bait.
The sun shines upon them with a fervent heat, but it irks them not. The rain descends, and the winds blow and beat upon them, but they are unmoved. They are securely anchored here in the lee of Sabbath Day Point. What enchantment binds them to that inconsiderable spot? What magic fixes their eyes upon the point of a fishing rod, as if it were the finger of destiny? It is the enchantment of uncertainty, the same natural magic that draws the little suburban boys in the spring of the year, with their strings and pinhooks, around the shallow ponds, where dace and redfins hide, the same irresistible charm that fixes a row of city gammons, like ragged and disreputable fish crows, on the end of a pier where blear-eyed flounders sometimes lurk in the muddy water. Let the philosopher explain it as he will. Let the moralist reprehend it as he chooses. There is nothing that attracts human nature more powerfully than the sport of tempting the unknown with a fishing line. Those ancient anglers have set out upon an exodus from the tedious realm of the definite, the fixed, the must certainly come to pass. They are on a holiday in the free country of peradventure. They do not know at this moment whether the next turn of fortune's reel will bring up a perch or a pickerel, a sunfish or a black bass.
It may
be a hideous catfish or a squirming eel, or it may be a lake trout, the grand prize in the Lake George lottery. There they sit, those gray-haired lads, full of hope, yet equally prepared for resignation, taking no thought for the morrow,
and ready to make the
best of today, harmless and happy players at the best of all games of chance. In other words, I hear some severe and sour-complexioned reader say, in plain language, they're a pair of old gamblers.
yes,
If it pleases you to call honest men by a bad name,
but they
risk nothing that is not their own, and if they lose, they are not impoverished. They desire nothing that belongs to other men,
and if
they win, no one is robbed. If all gambling were like that,
it
would be difficult to see the harm in it.
indeed
A daring moralist might even assert, and prove by argument, that so innocent a delight in the taking of chances is an aid to virtue. Do you remember Martin Luther's reasoning on the subject of excellent large pike? He maintains that God would never have created them so good to the taste if he had not meant them to be
Eden.
And for the same reason I conclude that this world would never have been left so full of uncertainties, nor human nature framed so as to find a peculiar joy and exhilaration in meeting them, bravely and cheerfully, if it had not been divinely intended that most of our amusement and much of our education should come from this source. Chance is a disreputable word. I know. It is supposed by many pious persons to be improper and almost blasphemous to use it.
But
I am not one of those who share this verbal prejudice. I am inclined rather to believe that it is a good word to which a bad reputation has been given. I feel grateful to that admirable psychologist who writes like a novelist, Mr. William James, for his brilliant defense of it. For what does it mean, after all,
but
that some things happen in a certain way which might have happened in another way? Where is the immorality, the irreverence,
the
atheism in such a supposition? Certainly God must be competent to govern a world in which there are possibilities of various kinds, just as well as one in which every event is inevitably determined beforehand. St. Peter and the other fishermen disciples on the lake of Galilee were perfectly free to cast their net on either side of the ship, so far as they could see, so far as anyone could see.
It
was a matter of chance where they chose to cast it, but it was not, until they let it down, at the Master's word, on the right side, that they had good luck, and not the least element of their joy in the draught of fishes was that it brought a change of fortune. Leave the metaphysics of the question on the table for the present. As a matter of fact, it is plain that our human nature is adapted to conditions variable, undetermined, and hidden from our view. We are not fitted to live in a world where A plus B always equals C. And there is nothing more to follow. The interest of life's equation arrives with the appearance of X, the unknown quantity. A settled, unchangeable, clearly foreseeable order of things does not suit our constitution. It tends to melancholy and a fatty heart. Creatures of habit we are undoubtedly, but it is one of our most fixed habits to be fond of variety. The man who is never surprised does not know the taste of happiness, and unless the unexpected sometimes happens to us, we are most grievously disappointed. Much of the tediousness of highly civilized life comes from its smoothness and regularity. Today is like yesterday,
and we think
that we can predict tomorrow. Of course, we cannot really do so. The chances are still there, but we have covered them up so deeply with the artificialities of life that we lose sight of them.
It
seems as if everything in our neat little world were arranged and provided for and reasonably sure to come to pass. The best way of escape from this tedium vitae is through a recreation like angling, not only because it is so evidently a matter of luck, but also because it tempts us into a wilder, freer life. It leads almost inevitably to camping out, which is a wholesome and sanitary.
À prudence.
It is curious and pleasant, to my apprehension, to observe how many people in New England, one of whose states is called the land of steady habits, are sensible of the joy of changing them out of
doors.
These good folk turn out from their comfortable farmhouses and their snug suburban cottages to go a-gypsying for a fortnight. Among the mountains or beside the sea, you see their white tents gleaming from the pine groves around the little lakes, and catch glimpses of their bathing clothes drying in the sun on the wiry grass that fringes the sand dunes. Happy fugitives from the bondage